Hello and welcome to episode 13 of the Hockey Life podcast. Today we are lucky enough to be joined by Marnie Pullin of the Melbourne Ice Women. She is 20 years old, represented Victoria at 2 Ginsberg tournaments, 3 DeFries tournaments, a part of the SHD Selects under 14s team, 4 seasons with the Melbourne Ice Women's AWIHL team, represented the U18 national women's team twice in Division 1B and 1BQ, correct? And played for the national women's team 4 times. And, of course, a Bauer ambassador. Marnie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
We've been trying to line this up for a while now, and
Yes.
I'm really happy that it's all come together.
Yes, and you're down in Melbourne, the best city in Australia.
And finals weekend as well. There's hockey around.
Yes, hockey everywhere, and very, very lucky to be here.
So, Marnie, first off, because, when I'm trawling through elite prospects, I only get so much. But I remember from conversations that we've had before that it wasn't ice hockey that started off your hockey journey. So why don't you tell me and all the watchers, how did hockey start for you?
So hockey started in inline, and my family was a part of inline for quite some time, and my mum loves to tell the story that I was born on the Wednesday and my first game that I attended was on the Sunday in a little pram. So hockey's been part of my life for as long as I can remember, and I spent probably more time at the rink than I did at home and with my family, and following my older brother, he was a goalie, and my older sister, who was a player, to Australian tournaments and state tournaments and inline, and then I started, and just from then on, just constantly playing inline.
Which inline rinks were you playing out of, and what club did you start at? Because I remember in another interview that we did with Walker, you said that it was like at somebody's birthday party that they put you in inline
skates.
So what's the family connection? Like who?
So my brother was a goalie, and he played in on the Australian team and multiple state tournaments, and very, very successful goalie. And my sister was a defensive player, national teams and state teams, and also very successful. But when I was born, my parents didn't
They'd had enough. They'd
enough
already
of
done the
paying,
miles.
so much money and running around to rinks. And my dad loved football, and he still does. And he sort of wanted me to maybe play footy. And there was no such thing as sort of AFL, like big leagues like AFLW at the time. But he thought, let's get her into a sport that's sort of different. But then, I was at a birthday party and just chucked me in these skates that way too big for me, but chucked me in them, and I just remember so well getting put in these skates and then barely rolling out, and they were the quads, they were the four wheels, so they weren't even inline skates, they were the
They're
4 wheels.
so hard,
so difficult. Someone put me in them now, I would not be able to skate. Got me in them, and I just remember a couple of people at the party were sort of hovering around me, and I'm waddling, and they put me onto the inline rink and disco lights, and it was the really great party. I should probably have that for my 21st, but
okay, so it was at an
it was actually at a Bayswater
because I thought when you
rink.
said it that it was just at a barbecue, on brick,
no, so at Bayswater Roller City. So they pushed me out there, and I just remember so well holding on to the rail, and just from then on, bang, hadn't stopped, haven't stepped off the rink and had time away. But then my, rolling around, and I remember
what age group were you going into in inline where you started at club level?
At club level when I started, I was about 8, but I was about 3, 4, 5 when I started with the skates, and because I had the party, and then my parents bought me those as a Barbie skate, and they're the adjustable.
Sick.
The adjustable ones, so they bought me them because
we still sell a skate that is similar, not in Barbie colorway. We didn't buy the licensing fee, but if you want some of those adjustable skates.
I should probably get some, but so I had the adjustable skate, after a couple of months of my parents going back and forth of, we don't want her to sort of do it, but they got me the skates, and then from then on, I just every time I was at the rink watching my siblings, I'd have those skates on, rolling around. If I didn't have the skates, I would go get like someone's stick. Like,
Yeah.
poor people at the rink that are playing their game, and I've just stolen a senior stick, like, and just, you know, got a inline puck like on the carpet of the Bayswater Roller City. I'm
And
just
gone.
puck handling
How many
back and
sticks
forth.
were broken and they were looking for their
probably.
stick for the
People-
overtime winner,
yeah,
and
people
it
like,
was
"Where's my
ruined by
stick?"
Marnie Pullin.
Where's my stick? And I'm like smashing it on the ground, flexing it as hard as I can. And but then I started in a team. My siblings were a part of like the Bayswater Lions.
Yep.
My dad coached them. And I just started. The Bayswater Lions sort of weren't really around when I started, like playing in games and inline.
Yep.
So I ended up just playing for, it was called a blue team at the Bayswater Roller City.
Yep.
And from then on, my dad coached me, and every single year played for the sort of blue team and did state tournaments and stuff
Yep.
and then I did the Australian Oceania team down in Melbourne when I was 10, 11,
Yep.
so in the under 12s. And then from then, like, literally just played every single year with the blue team with my dad coaching, and then that was it. Then moved over.
So cool.
Yeah.
Now, here's a quick one. What is your favourite thing about an inline tournament, like a national championships tournament? What's your favourite thing?
I actually haven't had it for a pretty long time. But what I do remember is there being all the different age levels, all the same. So you'd have your game, and then you'd go get changed, and you'd run out, and you'd be watching, you know, the junior women or something, or you'd be watching, you know, under 15s, and having literally everyone in the inline community at the rinks.
Yep.
Was just so awesome. They're definitely my core memories, because you end up making friends and getting to know people who are a couple of years younger than you or older than you, and then it also helps like sort of spark, like I remember doing under 12s or under 15s, and then the next, like watching the junior women and saying, well, I want to play junior women. Like, I feel like I'm good enough to play junior women. And my sister was playing junior women.
Yep.
And watching them, I'm watching them stand thinking, I can do that. I can do that. And then the next year I said to my parents, well, I want to try out. And my parents were like, oh, I don't think you're sort of ready, because it's very like different sort of physicality.
Yep.
To, you know, the under 12s and 15s and stuff. So my sister said, please, like, can she please play with me, like our one time that we'll be able to play together, because we were sort of talking about I'd be my last nationals before I moved to ice hockey. And my parents said, okay, fine, we'll try our best to sort of, you know, ask around, see if we can get you into the team, and had tryouts and stuff and got selected. And then we won gold, and I got the most assists for the junior women competition. Best. So it's that sort of stuff like that. I could have just easily sat in, you know, the under 12s and under 15s and gone, this is my last year, but wanting to sort of push myself and set those goals of, you know, be not just in the team, but be a critical part of the team. So getting the assists and those sort of rewards and getting the gold was pretty awesome. So,
and that's so good, and that's exactly the point about having all of the different age groups there, because I remember going to those tournaments as well, and it's a totally different atmosphere because you're watching the older teams like shred, and you're seeing moves and things that you would just miss out on if you're not, you know, consistently watching their games through the season or whatever. But to have it all there, like, and key moments of like hockey development that I remember I saw Billy Cliff do a Michigan, and he was like 2 years below me, and I was like, what witchcraft did I just see? And so the rest of the tournament, everyone, I wasn't even listening, I was just trying to do it because it's just so good. And that's why I bring that up, because, you know, the national championships was just in Newcastle, had all the different grades together, and what a great atmosphere. And for those players, and it actually happened when I was playing ice as well. And one of the best things was the older, I think it was midget team, they all did like on a line or whatever, where they all put their sticks over, and then, like, you know, we were like 12 years old, like running down, and all these guys was like smacking you so hard. I was good. It was so good.
And you get so wound up. Like, I even I watched a couple of the games with that tournament recently in Newcastle, and so many of the like older teams were, you know, the Ginsberg stuff, they're watching, they're smashing on the glass, and I think like I sort of wish I had that, but then I did have that with inline. I was able to, play junior women and stuff and see younger girls like on the sidelines and go, oh, cool. Like, you know, you're inspiring people and they get to, like you said, pick up some of your traits that, you know, they'll be able to use in their game. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Ice Hockey Australia do to hopefully in the future have those sort of tournaments that are, you know, really
I think
together.
It's the best recipe. And Marnie, so when we're talking about inline and your progression there, who was really pushing you? Was your sister pushing you to get better? Was it your dad, or was it like you were just given the tools to be able to practice at home or try what you wanted to train? You know, how did that kind of go?
Well, off ice, my siblings and I, well, especially my brother, we're just so competitive that we'd always be doing something in the garage, like just or knee hockey or something that I just like they'd pick on me, like especially my brother would, you know, build that sort of resilience of he wouldn't play against me if we're doing off ice stuff or training as if I was like 11 or 10 or 8 years old. He'd be
in the net, fully kitted up and like
hitting,
saving everything.
I'm, you know, my sister would be, you know, like pinning me down while my brother's getting the puck and stuff like so that sort of like really pushed me of like really sparked my competitiveness of wanting to like beat my siblings off the ice. And my dad and I, we would play a lot of sort of stick and puck off the ice and stuff and just sort of hang out. And then we got a hockey net when I was maybe 11 or 12 off the ice. And that we had it in his warehouse and we just go down the back of the warehouse and just pass pucks and shoot. And
that is so sick. So like concrete floor,
and we just
awesome.
pass pucks. So I've actually was going to send you some of the videos that we had of like I found on my dad's phone of my shooting technique was so sick.
I'm already thinking that you probably had the best setup for off-ice training.
Yeah, so I was really, really lucky. We got that goal off the Bronte family, so Tyrone and Declan Bronte. So they were going overseas and their parents were through inline, said to my parents, well, we don't need this net at our house, so do you guys want it?
Sick.
Dad said, sure, and put it in the back of his warehouse and we just ripped pucks and like the amount of times pucks would come off and it would hit because my parents work in a business that has like polyplastics, which are like little beads in big bags, and it would hit the bag and it would just go psh, and the beads would just be running out of the floor and I'm like, and I'd have to walk down to my dad's office and go, Dad, I just
so
hit another
people
bag.
have received bags of beads with IDS pucks just lodged in the middle of it, like just lost.
And it was actually quite funny because there was a period of time where my dad would receive emails of inline pucks in the bottom of pallets.
Really?
Yeah, because I just lose them in the bottom of pallets and I couldn't be bothered to fish them back out.
There's always another idea.
They'd get picked up, sent to Queensland, and then they'd send a photo to my dad saying, Ken, think I got one of your daughter's pucks again. It's just like an inline puck that's just been destroyed. So off the ice, we did a lot of things that weren't so much like, let's get in and let's 10 push-ups, shooting 100 pucks. It wasn't. And that's what's said a lot is you need to shoot 100 pucks a day, you need to do that, but you also need to have fun with it. And it becomes not so much like training, you're just doing skills and having a bit of fun and trying new things. Whereas if you sort of get out there and you go, okay, I've got this routine that I've got to do this and do that, that might work for some people, but young me just loved to be out with my siblings and my dad just having a bit of fun and testing me and see my dad, you know, rip a slap shot, go, oh my gosh, like hopefully I'll have a slap shot like that one day. And
I think that that's such a big point around like training and training off the ice, and especially at like young ages, is if you are enjoying it or you find like a rhythm and a routine, it doesn't have to be so rigid. And I think that's when you find that when the hours flow the quickest and just time flies, it's when you're not focusing on, I have to shoot 1,000 pucks right now because that's what's going to do it. It's like your puck handling and your rollerblading and it's all different and you're changing and then it's dark and you're like, okay,
I've got to go back inside. But I think one thing is that it's really good to have that sort of muscle memory of shooting 100 pucks, but having fun off the rink of just sort of like messing around with pucks and shooting from different angles and using sorts of different things of like inline pucks, ice hockey pucks, green biscuits, and doing like puck handling, but then shooting off your off foot and stuff like that that's what actually happens in a game. And you don't really, like, how many shots do you actually get to put on the net in a game? Like probably less than 20 in a full game if you're like getting regular ice time. And
they're not often directly at the net.
In the net. Yeah.
Shooting
so,
top left corner. No.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that's really good to sort of build that muscle memory, but it's also, hockey is just, it just happens. You can't predict hockey, so that's why training off the rink and having sort of fun with it is what's important, because that's what's probably going to happen on the rink, where you just, the puck comes off the crossbar and you pick it up and you backhand it and you're just having a bit of flow with it. So that's my biggest thing that happened off the rink.
And would you class that as your biggest strengths in the inline game, was puck handling and shooting and kind of awareness and where players are and making passes? So is that something, so that was really the core of your game when you're coming over to ice. So how long did it take to kind of put in or work on those fundamentals of skating and crossing over and going backwards? Because I think that's something really important for people who are listening that, you know, have kids within inline or they're thinking of switching over, like to kind of get an understanding of how long it kind of was for you, and then what are some tips that you could give about making that transition and getting the most out of it? Yeah,
it does take a really long time, and I think anyone who might just be transitioning or picking up ice hockey at any age it's not going to just happen like in a year or 2 years. And it took me training basically for 3 years straight every single weekend and multiple games to sort of feel at least comfortable. But even now, like playing on national teams and with the Melbourne Ice Women's, there's still things that I still struggle to do. So not chasing that perfection is something that really helped me. I'm fiercely competitive, but when I have been through moments where I'm like, I've got to keep doing this, I've got to work on this, but if you put that perfection aside, it's just, I'm just going to try my best and just keep working at it, it will come naturally. And if you do struggle, is just lean on people that know. So like, you know, speak to coaches, and doing off-ice stuff and stuff like that might also help. But, you know, going up to a teammate who might be really good, like you said, with a Michigan. I can't do a Michigan, but, you know, I know plenty of people that can. So if I want to, you know, get that sort of knowledge, go to people that have that knowledge that might have a trick, and it's being comfortable with not knowing, and which I find a lot of people sort of struggle with is, I don't know, so well. It's like, actually, let's give it a try, keep trying, and if you put in the work, put in the energy, put in the work, it'll be reciprocated eventually. So
that's it. And there's so much of, I always felt when I was beginning and starting, even talking to certain, you know, people who I meet through the work, it's always kind of like there's a want of them to, like, I just want to get good, I just want to get to that level. But what I've found, and when I look around, it's like there's not a level. It's like you get that one thing under your belt, and then there's the next three things appear, and you're like, okay, so then you're working on that, and then you reach that, and it never ends. And I guess that's part of the best part of hockey, is that it's just a constant progression, and no one can say, okay, McKinnon, McCarr, you know, Connor, maybe they can say, I've done it, there's nothing else. But I just feel like it's just this constant uphill like skate of just getting better and learning new things and just progressing your game.
Yeah, and I think what supported me the most is actually hearing people that I really inspired to be at a young age say exactly what I just said, of that, like, it's not going to just come to you. And that sort of reassured me, because when I was transitioning from inline to ice hockey, I was so much frustration that it wasn't coming. It's I'm good at inline, and why can't it just transition over? And I just want to go back to inline because that's what I was good at. But my parents just kept saying, no, you've done it. You've come over to ice hockey. There's no going back, you know.
Yep.
And I would think, oh, gosh, I can't show my face at the rink ever again, sort of thing. So, you know, I've just got to commit to it, and being a part of the Melbourne Ice development squad, and people like seeing these elite players that are playing on this team regularly and on national teams, that you see them at training and they fall over. They're human.
Yeah.
Like, they might be really good at things, but everyone falls over. Everyone makes a mistake, and that's you're human. Like, you watch
Yeah.
the best players out there in AIHL, and they make mistakes. So, you know, being comfortable with, you know, making those mistakes but bouncing back from them is what separates people.
Yeah.
So encouraging that in, you know, your children or yourself is, you know, it's okay to make a mistake, but it's how you actually react to, you know, those mistakes that, like, will actually make you improve. If you don't have that, okay, I've made the mistake, I'm going to have a growth mindset, I'm going to get better, I'm going to see if I need to try new things to improve that skill, then, you know, you'll make a difference. But if you don't, then, you know, you'll just wither away.
You moved over to ice, Marnie. Who was your first club?
The Melbourne Ice Women's, I guess. I did have, I believe, it was sort of Ginsberg, a couple of months with Ginsberg.
Yep.
And then we had the national tournament, but Melbourne Ice Women's was my first club, which I was a part of the development squad for 2 years.
Yep. So how old were you when you stepped in that? 14 or?
12.
12.
Yep.
You were 12.
Turning 12, yeah.
So what is it like walking into the change room as a 12-year-old to, you know, an established Melbourne Ice Women's team, like all these absolute superstars, guns, and you being 12 years old? Like, what is your mindset going into that? You know, how are you feeling?
I mean, I knew a couple of women from inline, but it was quite scary, to be honest. And I think that's what sometimes deters people from, you know, maybe trying out for AWIHL teams and stuff like that, is that it can be really daunting going into, you know, checking on social media. Okay, that's the tryouts. And then you go in, you know, what change room am I in? And you go in and it's scary because they've all got their spots. They've all got their cliques, but their friendship groups and stuff like that. And it's loud and it's hustle and bustle. You're thinking, oh my goodness, I'm so out of my depth, because inline I was comfortable in. Like, I could have just sat back with inline and just gone, okay, like, I don't really need to put any more work in because this is just, I'm good enough to play inline. So going into that, I was, quite nervous.
But I mean, you obviously felt comfortable enough to show up to those tryouts and like put on a good showing for them to say, come and be on our training squad. Like, that must have been such a awesome bit of gratification. Like, I've made the switch and then I can see my path forward. You know.
Well, at the time I didn't probably appreciate it as much as I look back now and realizing that not everyone else had that journey. Because at the time I was just thinking, well, this is just what happens in the top level of women's ice hockey in Australia. But it wasn't until now where I think, oh, well, other clubs don't really have that sort of development squad where you're part of every training, you're part of every team chat, you're part of, like, you know, all the stuff during game day. And that's what really helped me, is I was just absorbed instantly into that team. And at the time I just thought that this is just like being basically just grabbed and saying, you're just one of us now, and you're part of this family and you're part of this club. I just thought that was just what happened. But I look back now and I'm thinking, well, that's not everyone has that. And I, like, speaking with yourself and other people about that journey, is if that didn't happen, those 2 years where I had that development, like, in that with the Melbourne Ice Women, you know, I always question, well, like, what if I went to it and it wasn't as positive as it was? Like, I, you know, probably might not be the player that I am now, but I was just instantly absorbed into the team and just loved and, like, respected from the top players. So
that is so good, because what was that the only avenue for you at 12 years old then? Was there women's junior leagues, or was there, like, what were the other alternatives if it wasn't with
so there was no women's only leagues, but I had, like, we touched on Ginsberg and DeFries, but after that you have nothing. So once DeFries ends, you unfortunately can't go to Tange as it's full contact. So after that, you just basically say you've either got the AWIHL. If you're not good for that, then you've got your like club teams in you know, your Victoria or wherever. And I was like, at that age, well, I just thought, well, I'll just like give it a shot and see if I can, work my way up. But I knew that when you turn 14, you can be a part of the actual playing squad. And for some people, it's when they turn 14, they unfortunately don't get into the playing squad, and that's okay. But I was really lucky that when I was 14, they said, okay, yeah, cool, you're like ready for the playing squad. And when I was in the development team, I'd never imagined that I would even be ready to play for the Melbourne Ice until I was 16, 17. So being introduced to it at 14 and having the coaches and the players trust me, and I reflect, and I wasn't getting regular ice time. I was selected in the playing team, but I wasn't getting regular ice time. But I was, and for a very long time, I was sort of, other people would sort of say, well, if you don't get regular ice time, then, you're not a sort of key part of the team. If you're sitting on the bench, there's a sort of like negativity around like being a bench warmer and stuff like that. But it wasn't until a couple of those senior players in my first year sort of snapped that out of me of like, no matter who you are, whether you're getting dressed or you're not, you are a critical part of this team. And that's what, even to now with the Melbourne Ice Women's, but being introduced to that at a young age, is that if you sit on the bench or you don't get dressed or you sit in the stands selling raffle tickets, you're a critical part of this team. And that's what really changed my mindset of, if I'm on the bench, well, I've got plenty of stuff to do. I've got as much stuff to do on the bench than I do on the rink of I'm up, I'm smacking my stick. Every time someone comes off, I'm giving them a fist pump. I'm getting around people. I'm, you want to play hockey, you want to be out there. But, when you top couple of lines come off, they don't want to see you sitting there going, oh, like, I wish I was out there. Everyone wishes that, but, you've got to get around them. And, doing that my first 2 years, and I did get some ice time, and at 14 I was awarded the the Rising Star Award and stuff like that. So I was really lucky to receive enough ice time, less than what I'm getting now, but it's all just a part of the journey of
And did you have a mindset then in that first season of with getting limited shifts that you were just going to make every second on that rink count? Like, were you thinking that way, or like, what was your kind of, what was your expectation on yourself of like what you were going to produce on the rink in that first season?
Well, my parents, having my dad as a coach when I was younger, really like instilled in me, but my mum more so off the ice. They both always tell me, if you're not giving 110%, then don't bother going out there. If you're not going to like give your most, there's always someone else that can, step into your spot. And on that sort of other side of the coin is when you're not successful and you've given 110%, that's okay. Like, as long as you know. So that was sort of my mindset in my first couple of years, is when I get the opportunity, grab it with both hands and just do what I need to do. Be me, do what the coaches asked me to do, play with my line mates, try my best, and that's the best I can do. And like, as long as you give it your best shot, then
3 goals, 3 assists first season.
that's probably more than I had last season.
Well, it's a different role, Marnie, maybe you really thrive on the limited ice. Like,
maybe I should probably,
No, that's great. And in that first season, who were some of the players that really kind of took you under their wing and really helped your experience be a super positive one, and also, helped you level up your game as well?
Oh, I mean, there was probably the whole team, honestly. Like, the thing that this club, the Melbourne Ice Women's, is, I find, that separates, I don't know much about other clubs behind closed doors, but I just know that what separates us is just everyone all together. And sort of, if one person's not having a good day, there's just someone else that will just step into that line and make sure that you feel comfortable. And there's like big names like Shona Green and stuff like that come to mind, being, I don't want to miss people, but, Riley Pageant, but now Alice. Huge people that were a part of my journey. And I don't like to just say, oh, like, those two names and they were it, because it was seriously everyone. for all the seasons I've been across at the Melbourne Ice. Like it's not just one person, and it's those little things of, you know, you sit next to someone in the change rooms and that conversation that brings out, you know, another layer of confidence in me because you've connected with someone new and stuff like that. So there was obviously massive inspirations on that team that I looked up to and loved having conversations and stuff with. But everyone on that team, you know, for, you know, moments of good and moments of, you know, probably not my best mate, but that teaches you something. That, like, you know, they're your teammate, but, you know, you take that sort of, well, like, I'm going to, you know, I've learnt that that's probably not how you talk to, you know, a junior, or that's not how you talk to a teammate, and then you use that later in your life. So you can't just have good experiences in any sort of team. There's also got to be a little bit of, you know, negative that teaches you something. So
exactly, and I feel like, you know, as long as it's within reason, but the negative points, or, you know, getting called out by someone, or, you know, that's one thing, but if your teammate who, you know, they only want the best for the team and for you, calls you out and says, you got to be better at that point. You really take that on board, and you know, you understand the gravity of it. So, you know,
being held accountable is like huge. That that for all the years I've played hockey, there's always going to be someone that holds you accountable, but it's the way that you react to that. If you take that saying, oh, well, like, you know, whatever, mate, like, I know everything, I'm a knower, like, you know, then
you think about it and you're like, yeah, I probably could have passed it instead of turning back at that point.
At the time you're like, oh, okay, but then you go, actually, so that wasn't, it's that sort of having that sort of respect for, you know, your elders. That took me a little bit, like my first year, that coming across and having like success in inline and junior success and stuff like that, and you know, sort of like having this sort of, oh, I love this team, and, you know, this bit of swagger in the team, and comfortability of like, oh, I feel part of it. And then you get on the ice and then you come across another senior player who like tells you to sit the F down, and you go, whoa, okay. Like, you know, and at the time I was like, whoa, oh, wow, okay. Like, you know, but then like, you then sit back on the bench, you go, okay, I've got to actually respect people that are older than me because they've been here for longer. They know, like, they know more than me and stuff like that. But one thing that does sit out that I will touch on is, like, I remember my first season after our finals and stuff, we were sitting like at the Docklands. I don't remember where we were. I think it was like one of the old places, no longer there, for dinner. And Riley Ellis, like, I sat next to her, and we were just eating dinner, and she just starts telling me, like, you just did so well this season, and like, you can go far, and all this sort of stuff, and those sorts of conversations that I look back on that were so big for me and my confidence as someone. And it was small, like, it was such a just sort of quick conversation, but it's something that I still really think about, and something that's really important to sort of express is that whether it's just one sort of thing on the bench where you just go up to someone, you say, that was a really good shift, or like, I'm proud of you, or giving someone a hug, or reaching out to them saying, I watched your game today, like, that was awesome. That sticks with people. So that, for me, my first year, having a couple of those senior players tell me that that was good, or I do something at training, they say, oh, that was awesome. And you still think about it all the time. Like, even though I've sort of become that player now in the Melbourne Ice Women's for younger players, I still think about those senior players who said those things to me, and I sort of think back on how that made me feel and how I want to be that sort of person for our junior players as well. So we've got plenty of them, which is awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, that's so true. It's like all those great experiences that you've had through hockey, you want to see that next generation have those same opportunities and go through that. Now, Marnie, first season in the AWIHL, is that when Marnie Mondays started?
Yes, it was. It was...
How did that all go down? Because I remember seeing these videos and I was like, this is gold. This is just amazing.
Which is so random, because like, we really only got in touch in the last year, and I didn't really know much about you, but like, the fact that you saw me at 14 is like quite embarrassing for me.
No, it's epic, because at that time, like, I was trying to film these like, everything was different back then,
Yeah.
and the social media was different, camera equipment
Yeah.
using was different. But I was watching your content and just being like, that is awesome. Like, that is so cool. So how did that all kind of start? And then that must have been such a cool experience to be
A part of, yeah. Well, thank you for being a fan. So it started with us at a sort of a preseason team meeting catch up of, get to know your players and coaches, and we're flicking through a PowerPoint, and we were talking about social media, and one of Shona Green turns to me and says, "Oh, like, what should we do for social media?" And we're sort of chatting, and we say, "Oh, why don't we do some sort of like interview segment? It could be quite fun." And I'm just sitting there and like just at 14, like I just want to be part of those senior conversations. So I'm like, yeah, like let's do that. And it falls a bit silent. And Shona turns to me, she's like, you should interview people. Like, I reckon you'd be good at it. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, fine. Like, I'll do it. Anything to be part of the team and be like, I already felt like part of the team, but to be part of, that sort of senior like group and get to know those sorts of players on more of a bit of a deeper level. And I said, okay, sure. And I didn't even really know what I was signing up for. And then Christelle Vanderwolf, one of the players at the time, she was really into sort of, anything media and sound production and stuff like that. So she's like, I've got a camera and we can do this and we can do that. I'm like, okay, cool. And like a lot of things, like you just think, oh, this is all a bit of, talk and will it actually happen? And then I rock up to training the next week and we've got everything set up and I'm thinking, what is going on? Like, this is crazy. So ended up saying, well, I don't think I could, like, I'm so unprepared for this. What are we going to do? And we were just sort of talking about like what it's going to be like. This is the camera we're going to use. We've got the microphone and everything. And let's maybe do some, questions and we can do it in all sorts of settings and stuff like that. And we'll do it next week. I'm like, okay, no worries. So I don't even know who came up with Marnie Mondays as the name. But
it's a great name.
It's
awesome.
It's a fun name, yeah. And posted on Mondays. It was a really fun, like considering not many of us had, or any of us at all had any sort of marketing experience.
Yeah.
It really just came together just from us, having a bit of laugh with it. And Christelle made the, or Dangles we call her, made the sort of cover for it and stuff like that. And ended up going the next Tuesday and walked into the change rooms, and I remember printing out the questions that I was going to ask and stuff like that, and I had them on a piece of paper. And Steph Bell at the time, but now Steph Conlon, who I still play with, she was my first interviewer, or the person I was going to interview, and it was her first year. And we sat down and I asked her a couple of questions, and then we did. I don't think we did a challenge on the first episode, but we shot the first episode and that was all great. Posted
I'm going to cut to that episode right now if I can find the footage.
Okay.
Find the footage, Sean. Yeah.
So we did that and then we posted it, and then the next week we said, oh, why don't we do a challenge, like a sort of challenge? It could be really fun to add because they were quite short and we wanted to, maybe build a little bit more engagement and stuff like that. So ended up, pretty sure the second one was with our import, Jessica Pinkerton, who so shy, like very sort of rock up, do her job, which she was absolutely incredible at. Absolute game changer. She'd just rock up to the rink, go on the rink, chat a little bit, but no, I'm going home. Like, she was just so straight down the line. And I remember sitting with her and I've barely spoken to her. And I'm like, oh, hi, Pinks, when we're chatting, and we do the thing. And then we did the Vegemite challenge, which we had to cut out because it was just so bad. Our first take of the challenge was so bad. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is just this is just going to become the worst segment ever. It's a bit of a, joke, but then we sort of regathered ourselves and, started interviewing people that I was comfortable with Steph, but interviewing people that sort of I was like comfortable with. So it sort of brought my personality out. So, that I didn't feel so a bit shy, which is just not like me. But so we ended up doing a couple episodes after and doing challenges, and then we ended up doing them on the road. And then Marcus Wong at the time, who was our coach, we did one with him and just brought the team together, and it was just so great to look back on, because
I think it was awesome. And might I say, I kind of get the feeling that was where, I mean, we're right now in a position where every team has social media managers and videographers, and it is so good. But back then, there wasn't that much content coming out, was it? There was photos, there was things. It wasn't like that kind of viral
not at all.
video content.
Yeah.
Game changer.
Yeah, it was just, for us, it was to sort of build that engagement to get people down at the rink. But it really became, like, I look back on our, Facebook group of that year, and it was just a team bonding thing that it was great for our social media, but it was something that we all got amongst of who wants to be the next person, what questions should we ask, and what challenge should we do. And then we did a Halloween special, and we got dressed, like, Riley and I got dressed up, and it was just so much fun, because the players started to watch the interviews as well behind the camera, and it all brought us together. And it was something that, when it came out, we're all commenting in each other's, like, in our group chat, saying like, oh, that was so good and stuff like that. So it was huge, like, just as a team, and really brought us together in sort of a team bonding sense that a lot of people didn't really see on social media.
So realistically, AWIHL, if you're listening, maybe there could be an award, which would be the Marnie Mondays trophy for the best social media video content of the season. Maybe that. I like it.
Oh, I don't know.
That's something skaters could get behind. We could sponsor some things for that.
Oh, that'd be really funny. But yeah, no, it was definitely, like, I look back on sort of, like we touched on, that sort of development in the team, and having that as my first year is something that no one's ever experienced. Like, no one's ever had their first year and had their own segment and had a really successful season, and as part of a successful team, but also personally winning awards at the end of the season and stuff, that it felt like it really sparked that journey in the Melbourne Ice, that it was like I just stepped in and
two championships back to back.
2 championships back to back, and which I look back on now, and it was just that sort of magical period that I straight away just felt like, this is where I belong, and this is the team that loves me, and I love being with this group of women and the club, and I just haven't looked back from there.
And I mean, it must have been such a great kind of inspiration for you, and to kind of push you to just keep playing, keep improving, because you experienced success so early with Melbourne Ice Women, that then you must have just been feeling like, I want that again, and I want to be a bigger part of why we win. So
100%, like, it was having 2 successful seasons where I touched on earlier, wasn't a huge, like, I wasn't really receiving a huge amount of ice time, which is okay, because I was, an important role off the rink, and also on the bench and stuff, was allowing those players that, the imports and stuff that, were incredibly talented to, have those really game changer moments and stuff like that, was what really motivated me, of like, it was such a successful season. And then the season after, it was just, like I said, this magical time of like, this is just awesome, and this is exactly what the Melbourne Ice, this is like, championship after championship and stuff like that, and wanting to be a part of that game, like those game winning moments and stuff like that, what really drove me. And then we sort of, that was a really awesome time, and then not being successful in the third year was like being at your absolute high, and then coming all the way down to the ground, which
at the hand of sirens.
It was wow. I just I look back on those 2 really successful years, but also like being a part of the development squad, having the success that I had as an external, but being able to train with game winning teams and stuff like that, was really awesome. But coming off like those highs and dropping down to the we weren't successful this year after being successful back to back, and
Yeah.
all these years prior and stuff like that was, huge change of direction for
Yeah.
me, and because I just thought this is what was playing for the Melbourne
You would
Ice.
have. I
You're just
mean, how could you
successful.
not just think
Yeah.
that it was just going to be championship after
Yeah,
championship?
this is just, it just happens. And that's what I sort of, not like being sort of sitting on the bench, and I just sort of thought that, those players will go out there and they'll just win the games for us. Like, and that's just what's going to happen because they're so talented, and that's what's happened in years prior. And then in that third year, it was just like, okay, well, like, that's not what actually happened. So.
And 2 years playing with the U18 women's team for Australia. How was that experience? And I mean, playing A-Dub and then going away with the U18 team, like, talk to me about that. Like,
it was, I mean, that sort of period was just from when I was 12 to 16, it was just like a flash. Like, I just was moving through hockey so quickly. I was playing in the state team, like transferring from inline, state team, Melbourne Ice Women's, then selected, then I went to a training camp for the U18s when I wasn't eligible, when I was 12, turning 13, and then got to have a taste of that and see, okay, cool, like national teams could be in the cards.
Joining those teams, were there some names and faces that, you had versed before and kind of, oftentimes I found with, state teams and different teams you end up on, you have someone pegged as that's the kind of person they are, and then you end up on a team with them. And often I always found that it was the ones that I despised the most that I actually connected with the most.
Yeah, you're rooming with them or something like that. That's so crazy to me because that happened to me. But in U18s, it wasn't, because I'd basically moved through, I had one season of A-Dub and then I was away with U18, so I didn't really get to sort of like know much of the U18s players, and then I went away with them, and our team that first year was quite split of like a lot of young girls, but then a lot of graduating. So you've got like your 17, 18-year-olds or 16-year-olds. So I didn't really sort of have much of a, like that first year, I had my friends from Melbourne, like Emily Davis-Tope and stuff, but I didn't really know many people that first year, so it was sort of just keeping my head above water. And then the second year when I came back, I'd known, like, you add people on social media and you see them in the next A-Dub season, so then you create those connections with people. And some can be a bit, when you play them in the A-Dub season, you go, oh, like they're the worst to play against, and then you rock up to the airport going overseas and you got to put on that brave face, because that's just it's something I learned from a really young age, and what was really like preached, especially in national teams, is you're not going to like everyone. And during the A-Dub season, you're probably like, you're competitors. Like it's okay to, maybe resent playing against that person, because you should look at it in a positive way, that they bring out that something in you that not everyone brings out. And for me, and it's changing that mindset of, they bring out that like bit of fury in you, rather than use that as, I'm going to go out there and, make even. Just be like, okay, I'm going to go out there and, just show them who's boss. Like go do it on the scoreboard and stuff like that. But it did take me a little while to sort of detach that competitiveness and that fury that, people like to get underneath your skin a little bit. And then when you go to like during the season and off the rink, it's just got to wash away, because you're part of a national team, and like you just got to wash that away. And that's
it must have been good as well to see kind of that level of your kind of age group, even though some of them may have been a bit older, but still to see, because I mean you're playing with the top women and against the top women in the country, but then to pull it back to U18, then you can kind of get a grasp on this is the people that I'm going to be moving through the next following years with and playing against, and kind of judging yourself against them. That must have been...
definitely. I think it's to sort of, you're playing to, during the A-Dub season, you can often compare yourself to, so and so on the other team, they're so amazing, I want to be like them, but they're 15 years older than you. And that took me a while to sort of understand, because it's so easy for you to fall into this sort of mindset of, why can't I be like so-and-so? Why can't I be? And it's like, well, they're, 5, 10, 15
Yeah.
years older than you. It's just not going to happen. And I think that's what sometimes wore me down is, well, I'm not them. Like, I want to be like them, and I want to be able to do this, and I want to be able to on first or second line and stuff like that. But it's just, they've got all that experience. So being able to go to the U18s and see people that are relatively your sort of skill, but some that are, a couple of years older than you that are, where you should be working towards is really beneficial. And I enjoyed that sort of aspect of it, being able to get together with people that are your similar age and playing in the Melbourne Ice Women's where you're with like there's maybe 2 people that when you're 14 to 20, there's about 2-3 people in that age group, and the rest are those senior players that you can bond over stuff, but they've got full-time lives and full-time jobs and stuff like that. I'm just going to year 8 math, and year 8
totally
English.
Different
like
experience
it's
right
so
there
different.
that you're living. Yeah.
So different. So being able to go away to the U18s and just be around people and just joke about, U18 sort of stuff is great.
I've actually reached out to a couple of your teammates and just asked them for a couple of questions, a couple of things.
This is really nerve-wracking.
Talk to me about you getting ready, because Steph Cochran seems to be telling me that you sit next to Steph, correct?
Yes, I do.
And she said oftentimes she'll be looking forward to coming in the change room, having a conversation, catching up about what's going on with Marnie. Yeah. But it's difficult because you've got your headphones in and you're totally focused, and there's not a lot of conversation that's going on. Is that correct, Marnie? Are you in your own zone?
That is true, and I'm sorry, Steph. But they're, I like to get into, my zone and love my music. Like, if I'm not listening to music at 24/7, then, like, I'm to the rink everywhere I'm listening to music. So Spotify, please sponsor me. But
can you sponsor everyone's Spotify? Really?
It's pricey subscription. But multiple. Steph and I always joke now that she'll be talking to me about something. She's a singer, so when the speaker's on, she'll be singing and I'll take my headphone out. I'm like, sorry, and she'll say, oh, I'm just singing. I'm like, okay. So that sort of built this sort of, oh, she must just be singing. But then sometimes she'll actually be trying to talk to me. And then I'll hear the back end of it of, oh, actually, don't worry about it. And then I'll take my headphone and I'm like, sorry, what did you say? She's like, oh, don't stress. I'm like, oh.
She said that she's actually just talking about you the whole time when you got your headphones and she's like.
Everything that she said. But I did try to make a conscious effort last season to, wear my headphones when I need to, but be a part of the team. Like, it's really good as a pre-game and use it like an off-ice warm-up and stuff, but it actually helped me a lot last season to sort of take the headphones out and be present. And it's good to maybe put them in for the last 5 minutes and sort of like dial in, zone in, whatever you want to call it. But it was really beneficial for me and really strengthened those connections, like with players like Steph, but people in the change rooms and that banter and stuff. Like, we'd be on game day and we'd be joking about stuff that happened last weekend and stuff like that, that sort of, it's good to make sure you're ready for the game, but enjoy the fact that you're never going to get this team ever again. So being present in that room, and, who knows if that's my last season I'm going to play with Steph, or if this season, or if it's next season. So I've got to take those opportunities when I can to actually connect with those sorts of players. So I am sorry, Steph.
So music's a big part of your life, Marnie. So what are you listening to? Like, what's
my music taste?
What's the Spotify catalogue?
Oh, I don't know. A bit of everything. I'm not a huge fan of country.
Really?
I'm not really a country gal. So, but if it's on the speaker or if it's on the bus, I will give it a bit of a sing. But those top 5 country music, like those country songs that are put in the change room, they're just overplayed. And I just, I've heard too much, Sweet Home Alabama. Like, I'm just,
Zach Bryan, surely. Come on.
No, Zach Bryan, a little bit growing on me.
Come on. That's a great song. I'm playing it right now.
Zach Bryan has, grown on me a little bit, but I've got to, his songs are a little bit sad. So
so what is it? What
sort of music?
What's on your playlist when you're sitting in the room?
If I'm sitting in the room, it's I don't know, your Doja Cat and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you
sick.
know, those sorts of artists that are like, you know, bit of girl boss artists and stuff like
Girl
that.
boss.
So,
Yep.
yeah, I like listening to them, but yeah, just a mix of really anything that's sort of that's been played a lot and stuff like that. But it's just those upbeat songs
Yeah.
but to the rink it'll be probably upbeat. But then after, like on the way home, I'll be listening to just some chill music and some, you know,
Yeah.
I really, really like alternative like R&B and indie. So anything that's like a bit different I enjoy, but I'm pretty stereotypical when it comes to pre-game tunes. It's
That's
just
epic.
anything
Well,
that's upbeat.
if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, we're going to link Marnie's playlist in the comments.
All
So
right.
you too can get in the zone
Get in
before the game.
Yeah, sure.
Girl Boss playlist.
Girl Boss playlist, yeah.
Sick.
Yeah.
Love it. All right, so we're going to fast forward a little bit.
Yep.
Last season, huge season
Yeah.
for Melbourne Ice Women. Such a close series.
Yep.
But at the start of that season, talk to me, you know, when the team's coming together in those first training sessions,
Yeah.
was there a feeling, you know, by looking around at all the players, this could be a big year, or was it just like, you know, previous years where everyone's committed and they're all going to play their hardest? And, you know, how were you feeling as a player coming into that room for last season?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I've definitely been part of Melbourne Ice teams where I've felt like on paper, oh, this is such a great team and, you know, we'll be competitive. But last season, there was just something so different about sort of the culture of the team and the group that we had, that there wasn't a moment where I felt like, yeah, we're going to win this season. Not once. Like the last weekend of the season when we lost against Brisbane, both games,
Yeah.
like after that weekend, like I just, you know, there wasn't a moment where I thought, oh yeah, like, you know, we're going to win this and leading into the finals. Like there wasn't a moment. And I think was what was really successful. Was it wasn't doubt, but it was this sort of towing the line of, you got to have faith in this team and it'll come together, but you just don't force it. Like everyone knows their role. And I think that was a huge thing, is from the start of the season, everyone was really sure on their role. And our team changed dramatically throughout the season. Like we lost Christina Julian. You know, we had, you know, players move back overseas. We had players unable to play some weekends. We had players with concussion. Like you look at our first game of the season and our lineup and our last game, it was so different. So yeah, there wasn't a moment where I thought, yeah, this is a championship winning team, not because I didn't think that we could do it, but because, you know, you just don't know until it comes to, you know, those semi-finals. And I've been such a big preacher that you just got to win 2 games. It doesn't matter if you finish top 4, comes to that weekend, doesn't matter where you place, doesn't matter who you play, you win 2 games, you win. Like It's that straightforward. It's not how many points so-and-so has, who plays for whose goalie they have. It's just, you know, that was a huge thing that the leadership sort of group was really expressing this season, is we get there and we win those 2 games, we've won.
Yep.
So, and I think everyone sort of had that mindset of, you know, we'll just try our best. And with this team that's going into finals, that best will be good enough.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, throughout the season, some really tough battles with Perth and Adelaide and Brisbane.
Yeah.
Like just the level of hockey and the import level as well.
Yeah.
Just amazing. So, I mean, so you were on that finals weekend. So everyone's on the same page about that. 2 games, we're just going to do it.
Yeah.
Was there a feeling of confidence?
Like going into the weekend, wasn't overly confident, but I was in the fact that, oh yeah, we're just going to rock up. It's just going to happen.
Yeah.
But in my teammates, like I love them. I had confidence and trust in them as people, that they'll go out and do their best. And like I said, if everyone goes out and yourself goes out and you do 100%, that's all anyone can ask for. And hockey, there's got to be a loser and there's got to be a winner. So if we go out there and we give it our best shot and we know that and we're not successful, then that's okay. Like it's not a big deal.
And going up against Perth, from a coaching standpoint, was there a different game plan, or was there something different to how you played them through the season when you're in playoffs? Or
Not at all, really. Like, we went through the season, we were definitely working on different things throughout the season. We knew what other teams were going to come with. So, like Adelaide, for example, huge on hitting the red line and dumping it. And we knew that. So we made sure that in that semi-final that we don't give them an opportunity to carry the puck to the red line. So what I really loved about our team this year is we all sort of sat down and our coaches really expressed that for each team, this is sort of what they do, and, this is what we're going to try to do. And everyone committing to doing that was really the recipe for, success, is that there's players in the team this year that could have just said, no, I'm going to go do my own thing. Like Shana and Godfrey and Steph and Danny Butler, like they could have just gone, no, I'm going to go this is my show. Like I'm going to go get the puck and I'm going to skate through everyone. I'm going to go score those goals and have that, game of, everyone's going to talk about me, but, no one did that. Everyone agreed to that plan for multiple games throughout the season. And when it came to finals, we just, looking at both the teams that we played, it was just like the coaches just said, you know what you're going to do, and sort of just stepped back. And then the leadership group and the core group just sort of guided us in the right direction. But wasn't sort of militant of, you got to do this, you got to do that. It was just like, no, you guys have got all the tools. Like, you know what to do. You've played them, right? This is your ring. This is what you train on. This is what you're comfortable. This is your fans are here, and you just go do you. So that's what we did.
Marnie, and that goal. I mean, rocking the proto stick as well.
Yep.
Absolute
Finally
snipe.
a stick that I can flex.
What flex are you wheeling at the moment?
I've got 55.
Yeah,
so
sick.
yeah.
Sick.
But to be honest, growing up, my dad, we'd get sticks from Bauer, and he'd just go, whatever's the cheapest, you're getting it. Doesn't matter if it's a senior and you're cutting it down or whatever sort of intermediate. And I remember having sticks that I now, to this date, have in the garage that I will put all my effort into flexing, and I won't be able to flex it. So this stick was actually like my first stick that I have actually been able to flex, and such a difference than when you get a stick that works for you and it just whips and it's just perfect for you. So yeah, that goal was it was all the stick.
Now I have a question. Brian and I went back and forth with it. Did one of the players did it come off a shin pad at some point?
No, it didn't, no.
See, that's what I said to Brian. I said, no, that was straight snipe. Like, that was so far out. Epic.
So thank you.
That was an absolute
it was I look back on that video, it was quite a long shift. So, those out there, short shifts. But in that instance, they had a bit of an awkward change, and, it was a bit back, the puck was a bit back and forth, and then came off basically all of our players on the rink just throwing the puck back and forth, and I pick it up and I take it down and, just shoot on net. And that's what we were just drilled into all seasons, pucks on net. Like, no matter where the shot is coming from, just put it on the net, because most of the time, if it's out from that sort of distance, goalies sometimes might not expect it, or, and you've got to have that sort of resume where you've got the skills to go around players. Like, I could have tried to go around them and, maybe awkward angle backhand or something, but I don't think Sasha King was sort of expecting me to take the shot from where I did. Yeah, because it was so
far out. Because you would wheel from in your end coming out, and then you just had it.
It's not really like me to sort of just put it on net, but it was late in my shift, I'm taking down, I'm like, I'm just going to put it on the net. I'm going down, no sort of intention to go down there and, score sort of thing. I know that sounds bad, but I'm just thinking, get off. Oh my gosh, I'm kicking myself.
You just had enough. You're like, you just had to get a break.
Like, this is so bad. Get off. And I shoot, and I didn't even know, it was my first goal all season. I didn't even know how to celebrate.
What a goal. What a goal. Like, that was legit.
And I got down on one knee. I'm like, I don't even remember how to celebrate anymore. But to be honest, like, core memories, like when I got up off like doing the worst celebration of my life, and then putting my hands up and Tara Baker being there, who's like a very close friend of mine, and just hugging me straight away. It was just like, oh, it just fills my heart now, because that was sort of the icing on the cake for how I would like to describe the season as, you know, someone who like I was receiving, and I'm so grateful for the ice time that I was receiving for the regular season and the finals. And, you know, I look at someone like Tara, who probably didn't receive a huge amount of ice time, but was, you know, a critical part of our team, and giving her that massive hug was like, it just sort of brought us both together of like, this team, there's not, you know, your first line and then who cares about the rest. It's no, this team loves each other so much. And, you know, and understanding that, you know, I sort of went through that similar experience as a junior, and then being able to sort of have that moment of sort of deja vu if I look at her and I'm like, oh, that was me at that age. So sometimes, like since the finals weekend, I've gone into, on the weekends, I'll come home from work and I'll go upstairs and mum's like doing something upstairs, and I'll hear, you know, Todd McIntosh like commentary in the background, like, what is that? And I walk into her room and she's watching the semi-finals.
So good. There it is. That's commitment. That is great.
Like, I've just put it on. There was nothing else to watch, so she's just watching the finals again. So yeah, we love watching those games back, because it just brings those, you know, warm feelings and good vibes.
Now, Marnie, I want to actually talk to you about, you know, being an ambassador, because, you know, you're involved with us at Skaters Network and Bauer, and then also some different brands. But before we get there, I'd like to ask you a question. So you've had a long hockey career already. You've played so much hockey, so many, you know, world championships in the top women's league here in Australia. So I want to ask you, what's next? What are you still striving for, and what do you see in your future years playing hockey? Like, what is that thing that you're searching for now?
Yeah, I mean, I have recently in the last 2 years moved to playing defence after being a forward for most of my career. So sort of just developing that craft is pretty big for me. I feel like I had a good season last year, but just constantly feeling like I'm not done. Like I know I can do better. I can top what last season was. So often off the rink, often on the rink, you know, working on myself. So as sort of that sort of role as a defence, like I know I have lots to learn, and there's so much knowledge around at the Melbourne Ice Women's, but also national team and stuff, and coaches and resources I feel like I can sort of absorb. So from there though, like I would really love to go play overseas, but that's obviously, you know, everyone loves to go play overseas, and Sweden and like North America and stuff. And I just don't think that the family I have at the Melbourne Ice Women's, I'm just not ready to let that go. And at my age, turning 21 in a month, I could probably once I finish uni, start thinking about going over and you know, growing my game a little bit more there. But I just love this team so much, and I feel like, you know, I am still growing and moving into a defensive role, and that I have a lot of knowledge to give other people and to inspire people, and the friends and the connections I have here, I just can't imagine not seeing every single week. Yeah. So I've definitely started to think about, you know, it would be great to go overseas and, you know, hopefully become a bit of a better hockey player over there and more ice time and stuff. But I just love the Melbourne Ice Women's just too much. Like it's, you know, sort of weighing up that, you know, well, do you go over and you know, roll the dice of becoming a better hockey player, or do you stay here and, you know, just, you know, stretch out every avenue you can to become better and do that whilst being happy? And not saying that I won't be happy overseas, but I just love so many people in the hockey community here in Melbourne, and being away from my family, I just can't imagine either. So yeah, very small family we have, and living with my parents and them being such a huge part of my hockey as well, and come to all my trainings, all my games, everything. Like I just, can't imagine not looking up and seeing them in the stands. So yeah, I just...
Well, exciting times. Lots to think about what's next. So we'll be waiting and watching.
We'll see.
Now, Marnie, the next thing I want to talk about is kind of on the kind of social media side and being an ambassador, because I think it's something that we need to talk about, because like I remember when I was 16, I was at like a youth development camp. And I remember actually my boss now, Matt Pease, coming to the camp and having a presentation from Bauer and talking to us. And I actually asked a question then. I was like, hey, like, Matt, how do we get sponsored? And, at that point, it wasn't a thing like what it is now. It's like a totally different world with what we've got. Now we've got a team of players that we're able to support and hook up with gear and then also do, our own content tailored to our region, which is something that I think is really important, because for so many years, all we had was like, hey, there's Ovechkin when he was on Bauer, or hey, here's the North American guys or girls. But now it's like, no, it's really important that we highlight what's happening here. And I mean, such an awesome thing that we could get you on Team Bauer and we have you doing like videos and, interviews with Walker and activations on new products and these kind of things. So I wanted to ask you, because now we're in a world where being marketable and using social media for a positive gain is something that's really attainable to everyone, because the power of the iPhone means you can highlight your sport, what you're doing, and then also, have collaborations with brands. So I want to ask you, how did that all start? Was it Marnie Mondays that started this trajectory? Because now, I mean, you're close to, when I checked last a couple of days ago, 10,200, like 10.2K, which is massive, and you're putting out great content. So how did that kind of start? And then can you kind of give some tips and things that would be really important for someone who is like a coming up hockey player and really wants to be on Team Bauer or be a part of these things, these kind of things, or do their own social media stuff? How do they kind of get into that?
I mean, it didn't really start with Marnie Mondays. I feel like I was always pretty comfortable in front of a camera, and that definitely helped. But I didn't do Marnie Mondays, I did it when I was 14 and now I'm 20. So I started my Instagram account mainly for sponsorship. So came around the AWIHL season, not the season that just passed, but the season before. And I thought, I'm just, everyone's talking about sponsors. And I thought, well, I've got a pretty personal, Instagram account. It's private, like very close friends who are on it. And, I can't really imagine many people wanting to, like, I'm not going to post much on that about, sponsors and stuff like that. So I just started the account and just started posting stuff. I wasn't even in season yet. So I was just really using like old photos with just creating captions and stuff, like, starting to build some engagement, and, my teammates started following it and stuff like that, and just started to grow and connect with, make sure you're following like accounts like that are overseas and stuff, like even the AWIHL accounts and stuff that have those sorts of engagement and stuff like that. So that's sort of what started it, and it just started getting the ball rolling of making sure that you're sort of engaging, posting content regularly was pretty big, because as soon as you have a couple of weeks off, it's down to, low engagement. And because that's just how, social media platforms roll, is they prioritize the people that are, or the accounts that are posting regularly and on the platform, sharing stories, liking posts, putting stuff on your stories and all that sort of stuff. So they want you to actually put more time into their app personally for them to promote your account. So I wasn't really much of a social media person, but during COVID, I did have a gardening account called Marnie's Hockey, which, I got into gardening, and a lot of my, teammates and friends outside of hockey were loving that, and I really enjoyed gardening. So I sort of had like an idea of, I was posting about plants, but like, how Instagram sort of runs. So I was trying to use those sort of techniques and stuff like vlogs and stuff like that into Marnie's Hockey. So really just started, once the season started getting the ball rolling and trying different things. And I think that's the biggest thing, is it's not going to be perfect straight away. So there was a few things that like I'd try, and if it wasn't really getting high engagement, it doesn't mean that it's not good, but it really just depends what your goals were. And I think that's what's really important, is outlining, well, what are your goals? Like, is it just to share your personal journey, or is it to get sponsorship, or is it to, just talk about hockey or product and stuff like that? So sort of outlining, well, what do I really need to push? And I was able to get a sponsor for that season, which I was really grateful for, and that definitely took off the financial strain, and I was able to, post like whatever I sort of wanted about the season and stuff like that. And I was really pushing for sponsorship at the start of my account, but I sort of leaned into, okay, this could just be fun as, just posting, a bunch of stuff. So ended up doing that. And then off season came around, and it's hard, like during the winter, where I didn't really have much to post, but I was just, sort of just putting whatever up there, and obviously being pretty filtered on like some things are like you can post and some things you probably can't. So sort of understanding, terms and conditions of what you want to put out there, and that stuff on the internet stays out there. So stuff you put on the story can be screenshotted and people can share it, and all that sort of stuff, and stuff that, I look up my name on Google, and like you go into images and there's just like all my posts are there. So sort of understanding that anyone can look you up, whether that's like, a team or a coach, or, your future like employer can look you up, and like they can see everything you've put on social media. So sort of understanding that. And then, the winter season finished, and then started the AWIHL season at the end of this, or start of this, the season that just passed. And I started reaching out to, when it came to sort of brands. I basically hate to admit it, but I did use ChatGPT to sort of draft my own.
There's a tip.
ChatGPT, unless you're at uni and you're not allowed to use it, you should maybe use ChatGPT unsponsored. But
as like an opening, like first engagement with that.
So I just typed in into ChatGPT, this is like my platform, this is what I like to promote, and I'm in like ice hockey audience, but also like a bit of fitness and lifestyle and stuff like that. I want to create like a generic message to brands that I can send, and spit back something to me. And I said, actually fix that, and it fixes it. I'm like, cool. So I copy that, and then I ended up just spending hours and hours and hours on just emailing like local brands, but also brands across Australia, brands overseas, to see if I can be like a short-term ambassador, or if they can sponsor me and stuff like that. So,
and now one thing that I want to throw in there, at this point when you are sending out your account, you've already done hard work in posting hockey content, because that's one thing that I think, like we get certain, letters or emails like, hey, can you sponsor us? And like, we're open, we want to have a chat about it, and we're all about it. But one of the things is that, we want you to love hockey and enjoy what you're doing, but also it really helps in that process if you're engaged in wanting to share your hockey story, because that's what's really interesting, is like, your experience as a hockey player at whatever level, if you're sharing it, documenting it, and that's something that people can connect with, that's a big part of it. So don't send that letter first. You got to, document your sport, what you're really into and loving it. And if people can see that passion, they engage with it. So you sent out those applications?
Yeah, I think sending out those applications, but what you've just touched on is having, there's definitely two things. So being okay with just basically, being okay with people probably saying that, oh, that's a little bit lame that you're doing that, and maybe getting some negative like comments that it's not really fair, but in the hockey community that saying that like you're just an influencer, you're not a hockey player and stuff like that. So being okay with, maybe some negative backlash, and also having the confidence in that, but also reaching out to brands and building a platform and your own brand by saying, well, this is what I'd like to do with you guys. And if you don't want to do it, well, that's your loss. Like, that's what sort of I've had my social media for 2 years now, but building that brand of myself of being like, well, if you don't want to work with me, then there's another company that will do the exact same thing. So, if one company doesn't want to work with you, don't take it personally, because I will bet you a lot of money that there is a company doing exactly what they're doing somewhere else. So if they don't want to, do things with you, that's okay.
And
they might not have the money or the budget and stuff like that for all the time and stuff, and that's fine. But, being able to say, okay, cool, well, I value my brand. I've put a lot of effort into it, and, I might need to work on a couple things, receive a bit of feedback on what I might need to change, and take that on and change, like you've said, like maybe put more posts that are about hockey and stuff like that out there, and sort of marketing towards what that brand sort of wants, and then, going back and maybe saying in 6 months' time, look, this is what I've changed, and, I think this aligns with what you guys are doing, and if not, just give me some feedback, and taking that on and changing it, and, just picking up brand deals that suit you. So not to be you feel like you're begging a little bit, but also
at the same point, they're looking for people to partner with, because it's not, it may seem like it on social media, but it's not actually a saturated market for everything. And then there are so many people who would be great at it and would have the most awesome content, but they just don't get past that barrier to entry of just putting themselves out there. So I think it's the best.
Especially I think what's really helped me, what I touched on, is having that confidence of like, well, no matter what real brand that you reach out to, unless it's sort of hockey related, they're not working with an ice hockey player. Like that's your specialty. That's something that you get to say, I'm an ice hockey player. Like, I play on this team and I travel interstate, or I do this and I do that, or, that's what is special. And that's what sticks out to so many brands that have reached back to me saying, oh, wow, like ice hockey, cool. Like, you've got a platform that is so unique that, everyone can be, a gym content creator. Like, everyone can do that. But if you're creating content that is in the hockey domain and also doing a bit of lifestyle and stuff like that, then it just be open to adding more things to your brand and saying that, well, this is my brand and it's special, and, myself and only a few other people are doing this. So this is why you should, do it and back yourself. And most brands will say, okay, cool. So.
And I think that it comes into another thing where is like so much in the hockey world, we always say to each other, like, we just need more people to know about hockey, or we need more people to play. But I think everyone's got the ability to, you've got your own friends, your own circle. So they're not going to know and understand it unless they're really close to you and they already know the story. But if you use that platform to share your hockey journey, which is such a great journey, and everyone loves it, that's why we all play it. And, that's going to get the message out wider and farther, So I think all of us need to tell people about hockey, tell other people to join, and post about it. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah, and even, like, obviously creating your own platform and stuff like that, but referring to people that you might pass. Like, there's a guy at my work who, I serve him regularly, and he didn't know. I mentioned, like, oh, he's like, what are you doing on the weekend? I'm like, playing hockey. And he's like, what? And then he watched all my games the rest of the season. So, like, he didn't follow me on Instagram. I wasn't talking to him because I wanted an extra follower, but because I wanted him to watch hockey, and him and his wife watched every single game for the rest of the season. So it's just those sorts of things. Like, it's great to create your own brand and to reach out to brands and get free stuff or get commission and stuff like that. But it's also really great to, get people more engaged with the sport, because they might know someone, and that's a huge thing. You spark those conversations, and then they end up saying, oh, well, I know someone who runs this company who does this, and you go,
that could be Blue Scope Steel, just sponsoring the whole of ice hockey in Australia for the next 20 years. So, tell people about it.
But it's just like those things that you never know where a conversation's going to go, and it might just end up being like, okay, cool, I'll chuck you a follow and follow along your journey. Or it might be, oh, actually, I own this company that, like, might want to sponsor you. So you never know who you're connecting with. And that's where my first sponsor came from, is that, just they sponsored two Melbourne Ice men's players, or a Melbourne Ice men player, and then ended up like me coming across their social media and it's been like, oh, cool, she plays for Melbourne Ice Women's. I want to sponsor her. Like, it's just that sort of easy by putting yourself out there. But if you're not out there, then like, you know, not many people are, you know, it's not coming up on the news. Like, it's not on people's Facebooks and stuff, like, you know, unless, you know, the actual leagues are posting about it and people know about it. So,
all right, Marnie, wrapping up, what is Marnie's top tips for social media? So somebody thinks, I'm already a hockey player, I love the sport, I want to document my journey, and I want other brands to be stoked on it enough to give me free stuff.
Yeah.
So how many times a week should they be posting?
Well, it really just depends on how much time you're willing to sort of put into like creating content. And I know that life is full on, and even for myself, like I try to post twice a week, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. And especially, you know, photographers might just not come to your game and you might not get those photos of you playing hockey. So you might just run out. But, you know, if you're doing things off the ice, like going to the gym or going for a run, and, you know, be looking at social media and trying to find what's trending and some fun ideas and stuff like that to possibly posting like at least twice or 3 times a week, stuff like that. Do your own sort of thing. Like, it's good to, you know, I know Emily Davis-Tope recently started her own like hockey account. It's good to see her posting stuff that is not what I'm posting, but like she could have easily just gone, oh, well, Marnie did that, so I'm going to do that. But she's posting her own thing, and that's good. So
because everyone's got such a different journey within the hockey
different
world.
life.
You'd
like
be on the same
hockey,
line and have a completely different experience with hockey and like where you're at in your game. So that is awesome, Marnie. And we want to see lots more people posting about hockey, tagging Skaters Network in it. And then you never know, it might just be me shooting you a message saying, hey, do you want to shoot a video with the new stick?
That's how we started. So
that's it.
Now we're here.
That's it. Marnie, that has been awesome. Thank you so much for joining us on the Hockey Life podcast.
Thank you for having me.